Here we Hello and welcome to the LD17 YouTube channel. I'm Darrell Parrish Bateman and I am the program director for LD17, and I am so delighted to be doing this particular show 8 days before the general election on November 5th, 2024. We are coming to you from sunny Tucson, Arizona, from LD17. I think the people on this call would like to say sunny and hot Arizona because they've been outside dealing with our heat for the last week or so. But it's hot for more reasons than one, not just the heat that comes from the weather, but also the heat that comes from this campaign. So we have a number of people on the call who we are so excited to bring to you today, because they have come to the state of Arizona to help us turn this state blue and win these campaigns next week to elect the President of the United States, Kamala Harris, and the Vice President of the United States, Tim Walz, and the next new senator from the state of Arizona, Ruben Gallejo. And in addition to that, we're going to do even more. In CD6, we are going to elect Christian Engel. These are people that came to do that and also to help our legislative district turn our state legislature to a blue state-controlled legislator. Not only the governor, not only the Secretary of State, not only the Attorney General, but also the Arizona House and the Arizona Senate, by electing Kevin Volk to the House and John McClain to the Senate. So today we're going to talk to these volunteers who came to our state to help us to make sure that we will be victorious next week in this election. So I'm going to go around and let them introduce themselves to you, tell you where they hail from, and also if this is the first time they've done this or if they've been doing this for a long time. So we'll start first with Suri and Sherry.
I'm Suri, and I'm from Oakland, California, and this is the first time I have ever done this. Just seemed like if you were ever going to do it, this would be the time.
It sounds like it to me.
Yeah.
You want me to go? And I'm Sherry. I'm also from Oakland, California, and I canvassed for Kerry. I canvassed in Nevada, and I canvassed for Obama. I went to Nevada, but this is the first time I'm in Arizona.
Okay. Kathleen.
My name's Kathleen, and I am from Portland, Oregon. I'm wearing a sweater. And I have been canvassing for more than 50 years, but this is the first time I've ever gone out of state, except for just across the river to adjoining Washington, which is a few miles away.
I think Maggie's next.
Hi, Maggie from Mill Creek, Utah, and I have been being active politically since I was about 7, but very active, all in Utah politics until we got so gerrymandered. So I went to Colorado and worked on Obama's campaign, Michigan in 2020, and now my first time in Arizona. So I've been up to Flagstaff, to Phoenix, and now down in Tucson.
Wow, that's great, Maggie. Thank you. Okay, how about you, Eric?
So I'm Eric. I'm from Berkeley, California. I've been canvassing since 1972 when I canvassed for McGovern with my parents. I was 16 at the time. We've been going to Nevada every 2 years since 2008. And we canvass a lot. We're on local issues in our area.
Hello, I'm Sarah Sanderson. I'm married to Eric, and I started canvassing at the same time, although I didn't know him when I was 14. We didn't meet till we were about 22. Anyway, so yeah, we've been to Reno quite a bit and in our local politics, which has been great because we got to meet wonderful people with the local politics. And then we wanted to come here because our grandson is here, but also we really see it as important that this is a key state. It's a little frustrating that there's only, 7 swing states that matter, and what happens in California at the electoral college level, it doesn't matter. We know what that's going to be. So it just seems somehow not quite democratic that there's 7 swing states who will determine the outcome of the election.
Well, I want to say thank you to all of you. Before we started taping this call, I shared with everyone that I too have been a national volunteer for presidential campaigns and have worked going out of state to do what you guys are doing. And I too was in 2012 in Nevada. I don't know if you saw me there or not, but fired up, ready to go, and did a lot of things with the unions there in the union halls in order to organize all of the out-of-state volunteers that came. I don't think people realize that people come and volunteer. You know, the other side pays people to do things. But if our Democrats have been organizing and getting people like yourselves to come and help to do the work to win for a long, long time. And it is important work. It is good work. And you and I both know how exciting it is to be part of a presidential campaign. So I know you've had a lot of experience, and I'm really happy to know that. We're going to talk a little bit about that because it's important not only to do what we're doing, but I want to know, why do you think it's so important? I think that Sarah mentioned it. It's because in this particular, we only have a few states where it makes a difference. And this is one of them. 7 states. All the other states, it's a foregone conclusion. I sure hope we can do something about that. But until that happens, the work that you guys are doing is critical to the success of the Democratic Party being able to get as many votes as not only they deserve, but they can. So are there any other reasons why you do this work?
It's better than chewing all my fingernails off. I just feel like I have to be doing something. We write postcards like crazy with the group of friends that I'm with. We've been so gerrymandered and so lost our voice in Utah, progressives, that it's very painful for us. And so for me, just to be doing something, and I agree with what was said before, that it's just, the Democrats have been winning the popular vote and then losing elections, and it's just heartbreaking to witness that. So that's why I do it. I've got to do something.
Well, I think you have to. I love the words "do something." Those are my favorite words these days. It's me doing something and me electing people that will do something. Our party has a tendency to look for good candidates to run, candidates who will do the work, do something that will benefit the populace. And that's why I do this, because I feel confident that the kind of people that we send to do the work will actually do the work. So that's one of the reasons that I am so supportive of the Democratic Party. I hate to say the party, the Democrats who run for the jobs that we vote for. And I think sometimes people don't realize that they're really they're selecting someone for a job that has to be done. So that's why I do all the things that I do, to help to share with the world the importance of being a part of the democratic process. So now that we said that, I want to know some of the things that oh, Eric, I didn't see your hand. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to add that we have one grandson who's now asleep in Sarah's lap and another grandson on the way. And so more than anything, I'm doing this for them.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm old, it won't affect me as much, but they have their whole life ahead of them. And I feel like it's important to do this to try to make a better world for them.
Absolutely. I think Sherry wanted to say something too. I saw that.
Yeah, I also do it for the camaraderie of the people I came with, and what's been interesting is the camaraderie that I have felt from being with the organizers in the district in Arizona and Tucson. They've been incredible, and their enthusiasm has been just uplifting and meaningful. So the camaraderie is part of it, and then the other piece for me is I don't want to wake up the day after the election and go, oh, Dawn, I should have done more. I want to feel like I did what I could, and and then chips fall where they may. And I agree. I think Kamala's going to win. And I think she's going to win by a lot in the popular vote. I'm more worried about the electoral college vote.
Well, I salute that. It's fun. The work we're doing is fun. I think some people think it's work. And the truth is, whenever we're together, we're like, we are the joy party, the happiness party. And you meet new people, and you're able to be amongst people that are like-minded, or at least somewhat like-minded. And it's reinforcing to be a part of a collective like we are. Because then we realize we're all in this together. I've done a couple of these shows on democracy and other things. That's a big word for people that didn't take civics. And so we have to help them with it, But one thing that I don't think people realize is that when this country was formed, we had a motto that was "E pluribus unum," which was "Together we are one." And in 1956, when we had a Republican president, Dwight D. Eisenhower, the Congress changed the motto from "E pluribus unum" to what? "In God we trust."
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right.
And since that time, there has been a sea change in our politics. It was not an accident. It was planned. It was contrived. It still exists. And that's what we are witnessing right now. I'm not going to do an editorial, but there's a movie called Bad Faith that's on Amazon Prime. Treat yourself to it. It is explaining the precursor to Project 2025, what the plans were, how they showed up in our world, people who've been a part of that plan and strategy, and where it has led us today. I think it's important that we have facts so that we know and understand the importance of the work that we are doing. So we're going to put a pin in that because we can go off on a rabbit hole if we go there. But I wanted to just mention that because we do have an important work, and you guys are doing it. So now I want to know what you've learned since you've been out there walking around. And I'm going to go to Maggie first because Maggie has to leave, and I want to hear from her before she goes. Tell me some of the stuff you've learned, Maggie.
Well, one of the things that's been interesting on the people I've talked to is they will tell me right off the bat, I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. And I said, well, can we talk about some of the down ballot people? And they really have been open to that. And I find that really interesting. And the other thing that's very different from when I was canvassing in Flagstaff, the conversation got cut off. But I feel like I've been able to maintain conversations here really well. And people are taking the literature and saying thank you. And, looking at Kevin Volt, and we're talking about, that part's been really interesting for me. So it's not as clear cut as you think it might be when they open the door. And there was one guy with a really cool car. And we got talking about his car, and then he just opened up in a way that was really positive. And he actually then says to me, well, I just want you to know I'm going to vote for 139. And I'm not, and I think that might have been the only thing he was going to vote for. But that's what struck me being here, is that people engage in the conversation longer than in other places I've worked. So it's been lovely.
So I have a question. have you knocked on more "I'm voting for Donald Trump" than "I'm voting for Kamala Harris" doors?
For the houses that have answered, it's been pretty equal.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's been pretty equal, but only one guy threw the literature back at me, but so I just said thank you.
Well, I can tell you're a seasoned canvasser, so you can handle that.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Kathleen?
Well, I did all of my canvassing in one large, brand new housing development. One end of the street was still being built while I was canvassing on the other end, is sort of the way it was. And one of the things that struck me, I was knocking on, I believe, only Democratic and independent doors. And I would often, the voter would say, well, I'm really glad you're here, but there's not very many of us out here. And the answer is there are a lot of them out there. I knocked on a lot of doors. I noticed that the Trump voters were more likely to have an in-your-face display in the yard. And I kept wishing that the Democratic voters would do more of that so they would to build solidarity.
You're saying they didn't want to put signs up a lot.
They were a little intimidated by the Trump rhetoric, the in your face, the we're going to deport 1 million people or whatever. They were going to vote for Kamala, but there was a feeling that there was something menacing about their Trump voting neighbors. And they would just as soon keep it to themselves, which I thought that was troubling.
I can imagine you think it's troubling. I live here and I live in a sea of red and in your face style communicators. And sometimes I'm hesitant to let everybody to even wear this shirt. When I wear it, I always get somebody that says something, sometimes off the wall, mostly with a hip going like
that.
Right.
Well, there are a lot of Kamala voters out there.
Yes, there
are. They need to have faith, Have the faith.
Yes, that's for sure. Eric, yeah.
My experience is slightly different. I find, I've lived in California for 45 years, and I find it to be hyper partisan and hyper in your face. And I think people here are actually more polite than they are in California. I had quite a number of people tell me, well, I'm voting for the other team or something like that. And I would say, well, how about I just talk to you about Kevin and John and forget it. I'll concede the rest. And they would listen to what I had to say. And some of them even asked for the literature so they could take a second look. That's not an experience that I've had in California or in Nevada for that matter. I've had several red people. That's my inside joke. I'll tell you that. I'm a criminal defense attorney in California. And Norteño gang members, their color is red. And they call themselves the red people. So if I get someone who says is a red voter, I say, oh, so you're one of the red people. They have no idea what I'm talking about. But I've had even some of the red people have told me that they appreciated that I was willing to knock on doors. And so my experience is a little bit different. In terms of the balance, I would say I had one day. I've canvassed 9 days now, and I had one day that was very difficult. A lot of slammed doors, a lot of people yelling at me. But the other 8 days, I would say I talked to more Kamala people and more Kevin and John people than not. Of course, that's part of the way Minivan selects it. But I've been heartened overall. And I actually kind of enjoy knocking on. Now, it could be that because I'm a man, people are more respectful to me. I can recognize that might be possible.
That's probably true. Do you go with Sarah when you canvass, or do you do it separately?
What we do is we go together and we filter with minivan, and one takes the odd side of the street and one takes the even side of the street. It's more efficient that way. We can cover more ground.
That's good. That's good to hear and good to know.
Well, I'd have to say that I haven't had as many slam doors as Eric or difficult days. And I found people to be very kind to me. I found one man who was very rude, and I think if Eric would have been there, he might have, gotten really rude. So I felt like being a woman that calmed him down, that I was at his door. And for the most part, I think some of those people are on our list because they do support abortion rights. And that's my understanding of how their name got there. But another is I'm really heartened by the people who say, I have voted. I've had like 5 people say, I have voted Republican all my life. And these people are just crazy. That man is just plain crazy. And he's not doing anything for me, and I'll have no more of it.
That's encouraging. I think we can all agree with that.
Yeah, but it shows that there's people who have been listening to him for a long time, and they had voted for him in prior elections, but not now. So I find that very encouraging.
Yeah.
I got knocked on the door of a retired vet, and he said he'd voted Republican his whole life, but he wouldn't vote for Trump because he's so disrespectful of veterans.
We had that too.
So now I think did we hear from you, Sarah?
Not yet, no.
Hear from you. How's your canvassing experience gone?
Well, this is my first time. I don't have anything to compare it to. And I'm kind of a shy person. It's not that easy for me to just go up and knock on somebody's door. So a lot of it has just been, trying that and, trying to say what I think. So I don't know, there are a lot of different things I observed. We actually, Sherry and I went together, and we actually had a lot of very good experiences. It was sort of like, it tended to be either like really good or kind of rude. But a lot of it was very encouraging. One of the best ones was our last one that we saw, and which was really a nice way to end the day. It was a 20-year-old who was voting for the first time, and I'm pretty sure he was going to vote Democratic all the way down the ballot, but we were able to talk with him about Volk and McLean and, try to help him, figure out how to vote. And he was like so pleased that we were interested in him and paying so much attention to him. He was a kid, and that was very satisfying. But we had a lot of quite good experiences.
Yeah.
So keep talking. Go on, Sherry.
Even with we had one guy that was very pro-Trump, but like others have said, but he wasn't like all party line. Like when, we talked up John and Kevin, and he said something like, oh, so the Democrats can be reasonable or something like that. And in the end, he took the literature and said he'd consider it. And then as we left, he said, go Trump. But, and it's like, it was very humanizing for me. I agree, coming from California, where people, in the Bay Area, people would be embarrassed to put a Trump sign out. They'd be intimidated. We really noticed that where we were, there were a mix of Trump and Harris kind of signs on the lawn. And we thought, how interesting, hopefully the neighbors actually can have differences and still talk to each other. I mean, that's a beautiful thing. So it looked really kind of mixed to us. I think you asked us what we learned. And one thing we also noticed, and I think this is interesting too, one is that when you leave stuff, most people weren't home, or they didn't answer the door. They were home but didn't answer the door.
You could tell they were home.
And we saw places where there was so much stuff, other literature stuffed in their door. I don't think a lot of people go to their front door. They go in their garage. They never even see what's at the front door. So I left some stuff on the ground by the garage. But that was one thing that I thought, what do you do about that? And the other is, we felt like men often answered the door when we were there to talk to a woman, and they really wouldn't let us. They kind of were gatekeepers. It's like, well, in my, my don't bother my wife right now, or if this is political, go away. And it's really concerning that that we couldn't talk to the women, and sometimes sometimes there's a split on how the vote goes. But if we can't talk to the women because the guys are answering the door and keeping us away from talking to the woman we're asking for.
So have you seen the most recent Harris ad that speaks to just that scenario where a woman is happily going into vote at a voting location, and her husband is waiting for her, and she goes behind the thing and they show the picture of her marking Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and she puts her little dot and she puts it in the thing and she comes out and he says, honey, did you do the right thing? And she says, yes, I did. It's the latest ad. I saw it this morning. So I think that there is a lot of that. I love this conversation because you've explained exactly what's going on. We've got split households. We've got people that have been so programmed to vote a certain way that they're going to continue to do it. Even if they know it's not a good thing, they're going to do it. But because you present to them some other options of other people that they could vote for, they're open to looking at it, which just that opening is a good thing, because a lot of these people have been completely closed and no one has even attempted to open them up to think a different way. So your work is invaluable both for this election and for future elections. And doing that face-to-face contact, why do you think it's so important? We talked a little bit, but what do you think? Why do you think it's so important?
I'm going to quickly go because I need to head up to Phoenix, but I agree with the people that talked about that community and being with a group of people that are so motivated and organized. And I have been extremely impressed with LD17 and the organization that's here. Really impressed. And I think, to me, that's part of living in a democracy, is that you have to work for it and fight for it. So I appreciate all of you. I appreciate being here. I apologize for having to run. But,
so I have one question. Who's going to win next Tuesday, Maggie?
Kamala.
Be safe out there. We appreciate you joining us. Do you want to say anything else before you go?
No, just take good care, everybody, and
I'll
be back next week. Okay.
Bye-bye. I want everybody to know I want to say one more thing. The reason we started last September organizing, we didn't just start. We had a 3-phase plan, written plan, a plan, not a concept of a plan. We used the abortion initiative as the precursor to knocking on doors. That's why when you went to that house, he said, I'm going to vote for 139, because we had already been there knocking. The doors that you are knocking on have already been knocked. They were knocked on to get the referendum signatures to be able to get 139 on the ballot. Our LD is the only LD in the state that did that. We started last October the 1st. It started in September when the Secretary of State approved it. Then on October, we did the plan, and then we started the plan in October. We've been knocking on doors ever since then. So in a lot of ways, it did make the knocks easier. That's why we know who the abortion leading people are, the independents are. So the doors you knock should have been a little friendlier than maybe just the blind door, because we had already seeded the territory. And that's a strategy that I think Democrats should use in the future. So you are correct. Nancy Burton is our brain. for organizing it.
Yeah.
She and Bonnie, and really the whole team. We have a whole team that works, but and they thought they were gerrymandering this district to make it harder. And I got news for them. We got them. Finch Leach is about to die because he didn't play. He helped to determine these lines. You don't know all the
Figures. Yep.
but anyway, it's fun. It's fun. So I want to go back to some of, this is important. I don't think that enough people, especially those who live in a place that's a safe blue place, they don't realize how difficult it is to be in a place like this. And you mentioned earlier that a lot of people who are Democrats don't like to say they are because they know that there's so many that are not. It's not that they're afraid to say it. We've been whispering for years, just so you know. And when we find one, we go, you want to acknowledge some commonality of purpose and interest. But it's funny about that. It's funny about that. There are a lot of people that want to come out of the closet and want to be a part of this movement, because it is a movement that they know in a direction that they know our country should be in. I don't want to do a lot of talking, but I want to let you talk. What's the most hopeful thing that you've heard in doing this?
I think it is we also had a diehard, her family was all Republican. She was a party line Republican up until this election. And she said, Donald Trump has ruined the party. I am up and down the Democratic ticket now. That was pretty hopeful. Talking with the first time voter was pretty hopeful. And I'm going to say, talking to the elder Trump guy, who actually had open ears to hear about some down ticket items, was pretty hopeful. I feel really optimistic about Kevin Volk winning. I'll be shocked if he doesn't get one of the seats.
I agree with you, but I want to hear from you.
And also, the organization is very hopeful. The planning, the organization, the enthusiasm there, the wisdom of how to go about this made things very hopeful.
Thank you for that. I know our team deserves that, but they value you so much. And that's one of the reasons we wanted to do this show, because we're all in this together. We could not do this without you. Like, how could we have knocked on 5,000 doors this past weekend?
Right. I would say, oh, go ahead, Kathleen.
Oh, well, I just wanted to echo some of the same sentiment. I talked to a woman who was newly naturalized and was voting in her first election, and was so excited that I was there and wanted to talk about, who the candidates were and so on. And in this new development, lots of very young families, large number of stay-at-home moms, little kids, and you could feel that making the personal connection with them. It's not just the name on the ballot, but it's someone who says, I'm here because you're important to us and your vote is important to us and to your kids. It really connected. And I appreciated the warmth of that reception. And I feel like you can't do that with just a piece of literature or a TV ad. I mean, all of us are turning off the TV ads now, right? It's a barrage. But the personal connection, it was always a spark.
Mm-hmm. And especially with young people, they don't get that very often. That's an important part. I hope that people who are listening to this show pay attention, because you are correct. This personal, I see you contact is extremely valuable. How about you, Eric? You were going to say something a minute ago.
One thing I think is hopeful is I'm probably quite a bit more liberal than John McLean and Kevin Vogt. but I think they're incredibly well chosen for this district. And so I'm impressed and hopeful to see the clear thinking that's going on in how candidates are identified here. I mean, where we live in California, we get a lot of screwballs that, leftist screwballs who get themselves on the ballot talking nonsense because not that many people vote in the primaries. And so I think that the quality of John and Kevin as candidates for this district is quite impressive to me.
They are two superstars. In fact, if you go to our YouTube channel, you can listen to the interviews that we did with those two dynamic gentlemen.
I actually really found it quite hopeful to be in a swing district where, people with different views are there because, like Eric said, in California, people just make assumptions about what you think. And there isn't like an opposing party that's sort of, or an effective opposing party that's bringing people back to sanity, sort of where people are more kind of meeting in the middle. Now, the MAGA Republicans are, in my opinion, insane. But there is something kind of interesting about being in a place where there's more divergent views. And I actually found that pretty hopeful because now the country is so divided. I think a lot of times people just are not talking to each other or, living in the same neighborhoods. The other thing I found quite hopeful is often there would be somebody else at home who was not,
Right.
target person in minivan. And we had some great conversations with those people because, for whatever reason, they hadn't been contacted very much. And often it was like a young person that maybe was living with a parent or something. And they were really interested in what we had to say and very appreciative of it. And that was very hopeful and kind of exciting.
Yeah, I thank you. Sarah, I see you there.
There was an elderly man, 88 or so, was always voted, and he said he voted for Trump because he thought that Trump was, going to be a rich man who would, if he was that rich, he would help everyone else. And he could see that, so it was really good to just get down to the basics of image, and these voters that we're going to talk to, I can lead with the school teacher salaries and the water, groundwater,
Right.
and they know. And I'm like, okay, good. They're not just image people, or the two lines that are said. So I'm really happy to see that here.
Well, I'm glad to hear this. This is a fabulous discussion, but I just have to interject two more things. I've heard you talk about the top of the ticket with Kamala and Tim. I've heard you talk about our wonderful LD17 candidates, Kevin and John, but I haven't heard you say anything about our congressional candidates, our national congressional candidates, both for the Senate and the House. And I'm a CD6 person. I don't know if you were on the East Side, you might have had a different district, 21, but did you carry literature for Ruben or for Kristen? And how was that received?
I just haven't had time to talk about, it's like you come at the local levels, you talk about that, then you talk about the top of the ticket. Are they going to vote Democrat? And that's about all people want to talk about. I am a huge, I've heard Ruben Gallego, been to benefits with him, and I'm a huge fan. It's just, there isn't time to get down that whole thing. Just encourage him to go down the ballot Democrat. But
my experience in, more than 50 years of canvassing is you got to choose 2 or 3 points that resonate with people because that's about how much time they're going to give you.
Right.
And so, like Sarah, we lead with Kevin and John because we think they're great candidates and they have issues that people, whether they're red people or blue people, relate to. I had one man who said, I'm voting for Trump. And I said, well, let me talk to you about John and Kevin. And when I mentioned the teacher salaries, he says, oh, yeah, I know about that. That's a big problem. And then when I talked about the groundwater, he said, oh, yeah, I know about that. That's a big problem, too. And then I said, well, why don't you split your ticket? The Republicans have had 20 years to address these issues and they haven't. Maybe you ought to give these guys a try and see if they'll, get a chance and see if maybe they can do something. He was very open to that. So we haven't had time to the minivan is cute because it's got 50 questions. There's no way you can get through those.
It never happens, yeah.
Say that again.
The minivan is cute. There's no way you can get through all the questions.
Right.
Ever.
Okay, Sherry, what were you going to say? Say.
Okay.
Kathleen, you can go first.
Okay, I just want to second the comment about the water rights. A lot of people I had a lot of independent people, not quite willing to say who they were going to vote for. They were receptive. But when I mentioned water rights, which is not an issue we in Oregon think about very much, water management, people really responded to that issue. And I feel like they opened up to the whole ticket.
Okay. Were you able to do any campaigning for Kirsten or Ruben?
For Ruben, yeah, but no real conversations. I was asked to hit Kevin and John primarily, and then take it as far as I could.
Okay. And how about you? I see.
Yeah. Dorel, am I saying your name properly? Dorel.
Yes, you're fine.
Don't be discouraged. So we did have literature on Kirsten, but we did not talk about it because in our staging area, they told us there's a whole other group going out for her. So they, they, instead of doubling up, we were focused on this, but maybe not from that particular LD, group, but there were other groups going out for Kirsten. So don't be discouraged that we didn't focus on her, because I think that was part of the plan.
So I understand that because you're on the LD17 call.
Right.
I know what they told you. I just wanted you to talk about your experience. Thank you for saying that, because we fall over each other with all this stuff. Yes, Kirsten has her people. Laura Conover, who's our attorney, has her people. I'm on the board of Arizona List. We have a whole list of people. We're doing all the women. So there are all these people knocking on doors. Do you think because of all that overlap that some people aren't receptive? Have you run across that at all?
Some people were pissed off about how much people were on their door and how much literature they had. So yeah, but not that many. And people said this before, but a lot of people thanked us for doing this legwork. I mean, generally people were, and we mostly had independents. We had a couple of Republicans. And by the way, what's a B? One party
minivan. What does B mean?
B. There was a party listed as B. We don't know what it was. Anyway.
Both.
Yeah, but
I don't know.
Okay, but anyway, people were mostly glad we were there, but a few people were like, if this is about politics, go away and don't come back, or already got tons of literature, go away. So there were a couple of people frustrated with how much they were getting.
Yeah.
I think some of these areas are really getting canvassed a lot,
So just from a historic point of view, because all of you have done this a lot, do you think it's better to hone in on one thing over the other because of what we've just talked about? Or do you like the way we have kind of pigeonholed our volunteers to do what you have been doing?
Those sounded like the same thing to me. What's the choice?
Okay, you've been working for LD17 and Kevin and John. Right. And given the opportunity to also do Kamala and Tim. Even though we have other down ballot candidates who we need to get across the line. Do you feel that our approach was the right approach, or should we have considered a different approach?
I think it was the right approach. I was so glad that other people, other friends led us to this particular place. And to me, it's really exciting that I was in a swing state, but not just a swing state, but a state where the state legislature is one person over the majority and blocking everything. And in this district is a very mixed district where this district could make the difference of the state. So I feel like that was absolutely the right thing to do. And I can't wait to see the election results and from afar. And I think this was just wisdom, unbelievable.
Yeah,
That's good.
yeah, I think given the, I don't know, it seemed to me the specific circumstances in LD17 where you might not be able to win, the top of the ticket, but there are a lot of independents that could be open to, voting, for state legislature, vote for a Democrat. I think it's a great long-term strategy. And I don't know, I really liked being able to canvass about that because I thought that was a really smart strategy. I liked it.
If you knew the discussions that had preceded your comments, you would be so excited to know that we have done the right thing, because there was a lot of discussion about one shot. If you only knew. So this is good information. I know the people who helped to put this strategy together, which was our LD17 leadership, and also an organization called ADLCC, which is the Arizona coordinated campaign. And they have been working actively for flipping the state legislature. So there are some hidden politics within the politics in this state that led to where we are today. I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for coming to our state and doing this important work that you have done, and a few of you will continue to do. From the bottom of my heart and on behalf of all of the leadership in LD17, thank you, thank you, thank you. And before we end this call, I have one more thing that I'd like to end with, and that is your hopefulness for this election next Tuesday. I just want you to say it the way you want to say it, and let's end with that.
I don't think my faith has been tested, but I think there's a lot of common sense people out there in the country. And the way Trump and his crew are finishing, I just got to think that's turning a lot of people off. My hopefulness is that there's not enough haters out there to carry him across the finish line.
Thank you.
I'm an optimist like you. I think Kamala is going to win the popular vote big. I think she's going to win the election. I am still a little nervous about the Electoral College. And the other thing is I'm really glad that we heard the early stuff about 139, Prop 139, because we didn't really talk about that much when we were canvassing, but I really hope that goes through too in Georgia, and I'm hopeful about it. We've heard very positive things. I'm hopeful, quite.
Anyone else?
Well, I have to say, go ahead. Go ahead, Maggie. Oh, Kathleen, sorry.
Oh, I just want to, I'm hopeful because of the level of organization and turnout that I saw in LD17. I mean, I've been doing this a long time in a lot of districts. You guys are doing a phenomenal job. That kind of work is what really pays off. And I believe that it's being maybe not quite matched, but replicated all over the swing states, that people, we know how important this is, and people are doing the work. And And that's the key. That's the key.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Well, I think it's a long-term project that we're engaged in. And I think what we've done here has really laid a lot of groundwork. I'm cautiously optimistic, I have to say, about Kamala winning. But I also feel quite optimistic about Volk and McLean winning. And that could, even if Kamala doesn't win, I know I shouldn't say that, but that the groundwork will be laid for a big change in Arizona. And that could really make a difference long term.
Well, one thing for you, for sure, you coming here is making a difference. And you laying on top of all the good work that our LD17 leadership did to bring us to this point and to carry us across the finish line for both Kevin and John and Kamala and Tim, and hopefully Kirsten and Ruben, because if we get Kamala in and she doesn't have a Senate or it doesn't have a Congress to pass
Right.
of the things she wants to pass, this is for naught. So we're hopeful, we're encouraged, and we believe that we will be victorious, and therefore we will next Tuesday and the following weekend when we find out what we believe to be true actually is, we will be able to celebrate. Thank you, thank you, thank you for taking the time today to talk with me, and thank you for all the wonderful work that you're doing. I'm Darrell Bakeman, and once again, we're coming to you from Tucson, Arizona, in the sunny state of Arizona, and we want to thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.